ready to learn today? Yeah? Let's make some noise. Come on, who's ready to learn today? Now, it's so great to be here in Los Angeles. In fact, it's a pleasure because I walked 2 blocks over from where I live. I just got off a flight from Boston, slept in my bed last night. It's great to be able to do a conference for a change here in downtown Los Angeles. Now, with that being said, my name is Carlos Gill. Thank you so much to Paige and the team at NetBase for inviting me to present to all of you here today. I want to call a couple things out. First of all, you see my phone number here on the screen. That is my number. Feel free to text me, call me. If you have any questions about this presentation, feel free to just send me a message. I'm also easily accessible on social media. You can find me at CarlosGill83, like I said before, on Twitter as well as over on Instagram. Now, you see a couple of the logos of the companies I've had the pleasure of working for. I started my career in brand marketing almost 10 years ago, running social media at a brand by the name of Wendys, which is one of the largest supermarket chains in the United States. I had the pleasure of being their first head of social media. And from there, my career brought me over to the West Coast. So like Paige mentioned before, I spent time running social over at LinkedIn. And then the last company that I worked for before I went out on my own was BMC Software. Now, I have an all-new book. It's called The End of Marketing. And for attending NetBase Live today, all of you hopefully received a copy of the book at registration. If not, make sure you get your copy. This is what it looks like. At lunch, I'm going to be doing a book signing. So if you want to get the book signed, make sure that you come find me. And with that being said, I want you to know that you are the first group to actually get a copy of The End of Marketing because it doesn't go to publication until next week. So give a round of applause to the team here at NetBase for hooking all of y'all up. Now, why did I write this book? What is the end of marketing? Well, let me share a story with you because a big role of what we do as marketers and as communicators is storytelling, right? It's to engage audiences through the content that we create and through the communities that we all build. After spending 10 years working in social media marketing, I realized firsthand as an employee that marketing today is fragmented. And what I mean by that is that today's consumer has more options than ever before on where they go, not just to consume content from the brands that they shop with or do business with, but also the people that they engage with. You know, when I started doing this back in 2008, back then Facebook was at the ground level, Twitter was at the ground level, there wasn't a Snapchat, there wasn't even an Instagram, YouTube was still relatively new. But you see, we're moving on from these platforms, and you're going to hear where the current is headed here in my presentation and throughout this conference. We're moving on from just Facebook and Twitter. Now we're entering a new era where there's private messaging platforms like Facebook Messenger, there's WhatsApp, there's Slack, there's TikTok. There's more options than ever before. So I started doing research on, well, what's next for marketing and how can marketers be what I like to refer to as digital savages. And I started seeing that there's AI that's getting ready to disrupt everything that we know about marketing, getting ready to even disrupt our own jobs. So the reason why I wrote The End of Marketing is not only to help empower everyone in this room to do their jobs more effectively and efficiently, but also to really future-proof your career and your businesses. Now, by a quick show of hands, who woke up this morning and the first thing that you did was you grabbed your iPhone and you went to Facebook to see what your favorite brand of all time posted? Be very honest. There's no right or wrong answer. Look around. Now, how many of you use social media in your businesses? Raise your hands high so I can see. Use social media in your business. Okay. Almost all of you. But not a single person in this room admitted that they go to Facebook in the morning and see what your favorite brands posted. Now, let me ask you this question. Who in this room enjoys to be sold to, whether it's online or offline? Okay, the people in sales, I think you're disqualified from this poll. But on the consumer side, does anyone in this room enjoy being sold to? A couple of you, a few of you. I'm going to put the 3 of you on the spot, okay? What brands do you enjoy following? Disney, okay? Nike. Anthropology. See, the reality is that most of us, okay, 99% of us in this room don't enjoy being sold to, but when we are sold, what we're being sold essentially is we're being sold a vision of how we can live a more productive life, right? Through Nike. We can be entertained through brands like Disney. But the reality is that most consumers today don't enjoy being sold to. But our jobs as marketers and communicators are to do what? It's to sell. So much of what you're going to hear me talk about is how you strip the selling out of social media and how you truly put the social back into social media. Now, the reality is this is your presence today online. Has anyone here seen the movie Castaway before with Tom Hanks? Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies personally. Now, I use this analogy a lot to describe the state of marketing, specifically social media marketing. Remember in the movie Castaway, Tom Hanks, he's on this remote island, and he talks to Wilson, the volleyball, right? Wilson doesn't talk back. What you're doing as marketers is you're essentially creating content and you're talking to yourself. I realized this at every single brand that I worked for, that we would sit in a room, we'd work with our agency partners, we'd create all this content, we'd create these campaigns, and the reality was that besides a few folks that work in marketing or partner sales, we wouldn't have the engagement that we were hoping to see because what? We were constantly selling. So every single brand in this room is kind of stuck in this giant digital ocean that I refer to as. And the reality is that social media today is noisy as fuck. I'm gonna just throw it out there. Is there a single person in this room that does not have a social media account of any kind? Think about it. We are all, not just as brand marketers, but as consumers, competing with each other for digital attention. So with that being said, I want to take a very quick and short moment of silence so marketers can rebrand in peace. Because in order to survive what's forthcoming, which is the AI apocalypse as I refer to it, you have to change your mindset of how you market, you have to change your mindset of how you engage, and quite simply, friends, you have to become a digital savage. I'm a big pro wrestling fan. Any other WWE, WWF old school fans here in the audience? Yeah? See a few hands? Yeah? My favorite wrestler of all time was the Macho Man, Randy Savage. And the reason why he was my favorite is because he was loud. He was animated. He was different than Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. He had personality. And you see, I compare a lot of what we see and do today in social media to pro wrestling, because while pro wrestling is scripted sports entertainment, guess what our jobs are as marketers? It's scripted business entertainment at the end of the day with a purpose. And your consumers realize today that there's a voice and a face behind the check mark at Nike. Your consumers realize that there's a voice and a face behind Whole Foods. These are real people. It's probably several of you in this room right now. So in order to stand out in this crowded, noisy digital ecosystem that we're in, you have to have a personality. You have to not only engage your community, but you have to be what I refer to as a digital savage. You look at brands out there that stand out, and you're going to see a couple of examples here today. Wendys is one that I absolutely love. And the reason why I'm a big fan of Wendys' presence on social media is because they're not afraid to troll when they get trolled. They're not afraid to have a personality. Now, the golden era of marketing, my friends, that in itself is over. And I'm just looking around here, right, and I'm seeing different demographics, I'm seeing different age groups. And as I was writing into marketing, I started even thinking about my own children, which are Generation Z, how they consume content today. And guess what? They're not engaging with Tide or with Old Spice, but instead my 13-year-old son is going on YouTube, and he's seeing his favorite YouTube blogger inside of a supermarket buying Dove or buying Old Spice or buying Tide, and then he's coming back and saying, hey, Dad, there's this thing called the Tide Pods Challenge that I want to participate in. Can I have your credit card to buy this? Or my daughter asking me to buy her a hydro flask on Amazon because her favorite vlogger on TikTok is showing it off. So in order to not just stand out, you have to also know where the current is going. And it's pretty scary because I mentioned before this AI judgment day. Thousands of jobs are getting ready to be replaced by artificial intelligence within the next 5 to 10 years. Now hear me out. Once your CEOs and CMOs get wind that you can hire, I say that loosely in air quotes, once you can hire an AI to automate how you manage your community, a lot of us in this room will be replaced. Think about that. Let that settle in right now. Once an AI can crawl all of your tweets, all of your Instagram messages, every single person that's using hashtag your company name on Instagram, why do you need a community manager at that point? The answer is you don't. So I say this not to scare you, but I say this to empower you. Because there's something called personal branding that a lot of us only really think matters when we're looking for a job and we want to stand out in the eyes of the person that kind of holds the cards of our destiny. But personal branding is going to become a competitive advantage for your own careers in what you do today. Because as a consumer, I'll be very honest with you, when I walk into Nordstrom's, I know that Ted Baker is going to exist. I know that Gucci is going to exist, whether these brands ever engage with me online or not. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Now, this right here is an AI influencer. It's a CGI created influencer that goes by the name of Lil Miquela. Pretty crazy because when you look at her, she looks real, doesn't she? Lil Miquela has 1.6 million followers on Instagram. Lil Miquela is verified on Instagram. I'm not even verified on Instagram, and I'm a real person. Think about that for a moment. You pull out your phone and you go on to Instagram and you see Lil Miquela, and what you're going to find is that she's doing brand collaborations with Louis V and Gucci and Supreme. She's at Coachella. She's out doing collaborations with celebrities. The reason why you should take notice in this is because the state of influencer marketing is going to be flipped upside down on its head because of AI and because of CGI influencers like Lil Miquela, where a brand can create their own influencer and they don't have to pay a talent fee. They don't have to worry if that talent that they're renting temporarily goes out and does something crazy, that then it's going to affect their brand. And I'll give you an example of a brand that is already doing this really well, and that's KFC. Meet your new Colonel Sanders. You remember the old school Colonel Sanders? Older Southern guy, the gray hair, the white suit? This is your new KFC brand spokesperson in the face of KFC. It's Colonel Sanders 2.0. When you go on KFC's Instagram account, at KFC, what do you see? You see the new Colonel Sanders, good-looking guy, right? With a six-pack of abs, tattoo on the side, speaking in millennial and Generation Z talk. And KFC is brilliant. They're doing this to humanize their brand. They're doing it to connect with a younger audience. They're also doing it to rebrand the perception of what we've known KFC to be for the longest time. And this, my friends, is creating your own influencer, creating your own voice and face, someone that's not real, someone that doesn't exist. Now, going forward, every brand will need to make real people the faces of their organizations. So kind of connecting the dots here with where we're going and where we're at today, let's address the obvious. Most brands struggle with organic engagement and organic reach because every single time you show up on the scene, you're doing what? You're selling to your audience. You're not focusing on engaging. You're not focusing on driving community brand building because you're making your decisions predicated on the end result, which is ROI. So I have some names here on the screen. You got Lil Miquela, President Trump, Kim K, DJ Khaled, Jake and Logan Paul. These are real brands. These are real individuals. With the exception of Lil Miquela, you can still engage with her. Because the fact is that people today are brands. Every single person in this room, you're a brand. Every single person in this room, you all have influence. When you kind of break down within your organization, you know who your influencers are? First and foremost, it's all of you. It's your employees, your leadership. You know, so many people get wrapped up with this word influencer marketing, which I think is a bunch of bullshit, quite frankly. But you really want to start spotlighting influencers throughout your organization, start with the top. Start with your C-suite. Those individuals have a lot of influence within their circles. Your employees have a lot of influence within their circles. We're already seeing this happen where people are becoming brands. People are selling to you without you even realizing or knowing it. You have business personalities, Ty Lopez, Gary Vee, Mel Robbins. Right? These individuals, if you follow them online, they are giving you value, they're entertaining you, but they're also taking from you. They're taking your attention. Because you see, attention is the commodity that we are all chasing. It's not followers. It's not money. You see, money, the bottom line, that's all a result of the attention that you gain, the community that you build. But you also have motivational speakers like Eric Thomas and Tony Robbins and Les Brown. These are all notable brands. So you see, in the brand marketing world, we all seem to think that we're competing for attention against our direct competitors, right? Going back to my days at Winn-Dixie, my competition was Publix. It was Walmart. It was anywhere that you could go in a community and buy food. In this day and age today, your competition spans outside of your primary competitors that you're probably using NetBase every single day to see what your competition is doing versus what you're doing. Because your competition is anyone that's taking the attention away from your brand. And that happens succinctly in the form of bloggers, influencers. While these are all people that we want to work with, they're also taking attention away from your brand. Now, as we talk about how you can be a savage marketer, it starts with knowing your audience. And I love this photo right here because this photo on the screen represents what the new age American family looks like. You've got your younger 10-ish year old daughter that's using TikTok. You have your mom that's using Facebook. You have your dad that's probably using LinkedIn to either network for a job or probably network for his own business. And then you have the 13 or 14-year-old boy that's using YouTube to be entertained by his favorite influencer. Now, the reason why I put this here on the screen is because I want you to think about your brands for just one moment. And think about who's the audience that you're trying to serve. Are you on the right social networks? You might already be there, you might not. What I see happen all the time is marketers feel that they have to be first to market on every new social network because they're going to get a little bit more reach. Marketers right now are trying to get on TikTok, but they're not even perfecting Facebook. So let me be the first to tell you this. You don't have to be on every single social network in order to thrive. But I tell you what, you need to be on the platforms where your customers are. So if your customers aren't engaging with you on Facebook, maybe you just use Facebook ads. If you're in B2B, maybe you just use a combination of LinkedIn because you know your buyers are on LinkedIn, and you use YouTube as a platform to create informational content to educate your audience. However, your challenge as a marketer and communicator isn't just keeping up with the now, but it's what's next. Because you see, what's next is already right here. YouTube is a social network that doesn't get enough love. It doesn't get enough people talking about it, but YouTube, from my perspective, is one of the most important social networks that exist today. And the reason for that is because YouTube is a video library that's owned by Google. Let's face it, Google owns the internet. So if you want to improve your SEO, if you want to improve the searchability of your organization, guess what? You need to have content that lives on YouTube that educates consumers on what it is that you do, provided that you're in B2B. If you're in B2C, create content on YouTube that shows what your customers do when they are out living your brand or wearing your brand or buying from your brand. What's that experience that they have with your organization? You know, you have a couple of other emerging platforms up here on the screen. TikTok. I'll be the first to say I am not the biggest fan of TikTok as a platform. However, those of you in the room, the Disneys of the world that are trying to engage a much younger audience, that's the move right now. Because TikTok today is very similar to where Snapchat was 6 years ago. If you engage consumers early, then you're able to nurture them as they grow up and become adults. You look at platforms like Twitch, which is a streaming platform for video gamers. And the reason why I have Fortnite on there and not Twitch is because you look at the rise of Fortnite, one of the most popular video games ever created. In the last year, they've generated a user base of 250 million plus gamers. You know what these gamers are doing? They're going on Instagram to share screenshots of them playing games. They're taking to YouTube and creating content. And they're going to Twitter and they're talking about them playing Fortnite. Do you know where brands are in this conversation? Non-existent. Yeah, I did this as I was writing into marketing, where I went on Twitter and I typed in Fortnite to see if any brands are swooping in the conversation. It's crickets. You see, the low-hanging fruit's already right there in front of us. It's reverse engineering how social media works. Instead of pushing out content, start leveraging social media to identify who's saying certain keywords and terms and phrases that you're trying to sell to. It's almost like using a search engine. You have the rise of voice, podcasts, audio content, Alexa. Don't sleep on Spotify. Spotify is not just a place to listen to music. It's a place to be entertained and educated and even inspired. So when you start thinking about like the ethos of the companies that you represent, what it is that you do, if you're, for example, net-based and you're trying to engage a very specific audience, give that audience audio content that they can consume on the train ride to work or the commute to work. The reality is that in the next year, 1 year, the podcasting industry is going to exceed over $1 billion in advertising revenue spent. And the reason for that is because, again, as you face the challenges internally that you face today, i.e. lack of engagement, lack of conversion, you're not getting the metrics that you want, that's because the current is moving in a different direction. They're consuming content differently. And then Reddit. Reddit is, from my perspective, one of the most untapped social networks that already exists that people aren't using. So think of like old school message boards. And just so you know, Reddit is not a platform for you to go on there and like self-promote or market. It's a community. See, all too often, marketers struggle with building community without realizing there's communities that already exist that you can just jump into. All you have to do is show up to the party and have a conversation. Now let's talk about creating scarcity for a moment. Scarcity and psychology go hand in hand. You're going to see some examples here in a moment. Because you see, much of marketing today is making your product look cool, but much of marketing today is knowing your audience and the psychology behind what makes your audience move. If you know what your audience wants, then just give them what they want. How many of you saw the Fyre Fest documentaries earlier this year? Almost all of you? Me too. And I'll be the first to say that the way Fyre Fest was portrayed was a shit show. However, in getting to interview Ja Rule personally, one of the co-founders and co-owners of Fyre Festival, there's one thing that Ja said that stood out to me, and I have it here on the screen right there in the middle. People want to be a part of something. People want to be cool. You see, we as consumers crave attention. Like I said before, hear me out. Attention is the commodity, not just for brands, but for people as well. So when you look at a conference like, a festival like Fyre Festival, you had consumers that were swiping their credit card and buying tickets for $10,000 a piece just so they could be on the beach to take a fucking selfie. Pretty crazy, huh? You have consumers out there that they buy a certain car because they want to show it off on Instagram. They buy certain clothes because they want to show it off on Instagram. They want to be perceived as cool by their homies. It's why when you go on Instagram today and you look at your Instagram stories, what type of content are you consuming on there? You're seeing your friends living their best life. On social media, we all seemingly are happier, wealthier, more popular. That's because, again, the perception is that we want to be cool. So think about your company and what you do. How can you make your customers look cool? How can you incorporate your customers into that narrative of when they buy or use your product, they're going to want to show it off? Or when they see your content's so damn good that they're going to want to show that off. Now, what you see here is what I refer to as the 4 pillars of a social media strategy. So going back to my days at Wendys and LinkedIn and BMC and Save a Lot, I would always go into my first 30 days on the job and dissect these 4 pillars of the strategy. And the first starts with content, because let's face it, content's what people see, it's what they react to, it's what gets them to buy, what gets them to move. However, content's one small piece of the equation. Then you have community. Community of the people that are actually taking in your content and doing something with it. You know, how many of you have heard throughout the years in your career that content is king? Several of you? I call BS on that. And the reason why is because although content's important, if you don't have community, which is the critical element, then you have nothing. You just have noise. You have technology. Then you have consistency. I often get asked this question, Carlos, how many times do I need to post on social media in order to be seen? Well, you know your audience more than I do, first of all. So you know that when you post content, how your audience reacts to it. If you're not seeing the level of engagement that you're hoping for, there's a reason for that. Probably your content is selling to them, it's turning them away. You're probably not able to penetrate the Facebook algorithm or the algorithm of the platform that you're on because you're using specific call to actions like click here, do this, buy this, share, comment. These are all words that are being filtered out by the algorithms themselves. But the consistency piece means consistently show up on the scene with valuable content for your audience, one, and consistently show up and engage your audience. Then the fourth piece is conversion, and here's the mistake that a lot of us throughout our careers make or currently make. We focus on content, and we immediately skip community and consistency, and we move all the way down to conversion. And the reality is that these social networks themselves are casinos. I can tell you this from working at a social network in LinkedIn as an employee. These social networks to you and I are all social media networks. What they really are is digital advertising platforms. So for those of you that are familiar with casino or gambling terminology, Facebook is the house. Instagram's the house. Google/YouTube is the house. And with all these social networks, you need to play by the house rules or you're not going to win the game. And what I mean by the house rules is this. The way Facebook and insert social network here, the way that these social networks operate is the longer that your content keeps users on the platform, the longer they can serve ads. So if you're asking yourself, well, when I post a link to a blog or I post a link to a YouTube video or I post a link to my latest demand generation campaign, I get very little engagement. There's a reason for that because one, you're driving people off of the platform to your website. Facebook is a business. You're a business. They are not in business to make you money. They are in business to take your data and your ad budget away to then serve your content out. Do you see how that works? So start removing, this is something you might want to write down. Begin with removing call to actions from your content going forward. Remove the sell less and engage more. Remove the buy this, click here, learn more, remove that. Start writing your content in a way that's inviting your audience to have a conversation with you versus driving them off of the platform. Now, there's no right or wrong answer here, but is anyone in this room familiar with how Tinder works? A few of you, the salespeople in the back of the room? Check this out. We are in this Tinder generation right now where people have a very, very short attention span and they react to what perceivably looks good. So I only saw a couple hands go up, but let me explain to you. Tinder's a dating app. I'm sure you've probably heard of it before. And people find, we're all adults here. People find mates based on swiping, based on seeing what in their eyes looks good. They react to that. Marketing is no different. If your content sucks, if it's not optimized appropriately for the channel, guess what? People are going to keep swiping in their newsfeed. If your content stands out, if it has, and I'll give you some examples of content stands out. Short captions versus long blog post captions. Content that's optimized properly for the channel. Content that doesn't look like an ad, but you're actually giving something of value to your audience. That's good content. Now, how do you break down the content? Fall into one of these three categories right here. Your objective needs to be to either educate, inspire, or entertain. And for those of you wondering, that is not me flexing muscles, that's actually The Rock. But with that being said, your brand should fall into one of these three categories. Whenever you show up in someone's newsfeed, are you educating? Are you inspiring your community to take action? Are you entertaining them? Now the reality is that most brands are not entertaining in nature. I'll give you an example. I spent time running social media at BMC Software up in the Bay Area. Not an entertaining company to work for in terms of the content we were producing. But I tell you what, every company can educate. Every single company can educate their consumers on the value that their products bring or services bring to their end user or their end consumer. Everyone can inspire their community to take action as well. Now, when we start talking about humanizing brand, actually in the end of marketing, I used examples of Nike because going forward, brands like Nike will start to replace the Nike swoosh with a face with trainers that actually show you how to work out. Imagine that. Imagine if Nike had accounts on Instagram and Twitter and all the social networks that you could actually go to one-on-one for advice on how to eat healthier, how to live a healthier life, how to work out. We're already seeing it with fitness trainers and fitness influencers. Why not the brands replace those influencers with their own company? Whole Foods. Love shopping at Whole Foods. But you know what I'd love even more? If Whole Foods had a personal presence online where I could actually engage with a person that's going to teach me how to cook a healthier meal or actually teach me how to save money at Whole Foods versus like spending $200 on 6 items. So let's talk about storytelling for a moment. Because let's face it, stories is what moves people. Since the beginning of time, we're told stories by our parents, grandparents, and as adults, we react to stories. So what's the formula for telling a great story as a brand? Well, one, it starts with what's your objective? What are you hoping to accomplish? Like I said before, you don't have to be on every social network at all, but when you show up on the scene, you should give people something of value and substance. I personally recommend brand storytelling to go behind the scenes of what makes your company run, what makes it operate. The next is pick your channel. So the beauty of this is that you can storytell on Facebook stories, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. What stories shouldn't be as overly complicated and technical. It also shouldn't be focused on selling to your audience, but versus showing them. So again, sell less, engage more. Now, when you start thinking about doing stories at your organization, you're also going to think about your storytellers. Who's a storyteller for your brand? Well, all of you are storytellers. You're all spokespeople for your organization. You have your colleagues within your company. And then let's put influencers aside for a moment. Let's actually talk about brand advocates. Because as a consumer and fan of the brands that I follow, I can call BS when a company has paid an influencer to temporarily make that brand look cool. I would much rather hear from people who authentically live the brand and buy from the brand. That's important that you storyboard your content out. Your story should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the reality is that because social media is noisy, people, when they see your first snap or your first piece of content in their stories feed, if your content isn't like literally jumping out at them, chances are they're going to keep skipping through, which is why you should immediately start your story just hype, energy, like, hey, what's going on today? We're doing bam. You're giving your audience up front, you're telling them what they just opted into. And your story should also be short and succinct. So you think of a platform like Instagram, you have about 15 seconds per piece of content, Instagram stories. Think about doing a story no more than like a minute and a half. That way you're able to communicate everything that's happening. Make sure you have fun. Make sure that you incorporate humor. Last week I had the opportunity to speak to 150 nonprofits in Florida. And what I advise these nonprofits is instead of using your platform to ask people for money, because again, remember the first slide, no one likes to be sold to, instead use your platform for storytelling as a way to show how your organization is bringing value to the communities that you serve. And quite frankly, regardless if you're on the B2B or B2C side, you can do the same exact thing. Now let's talk about moments, not marketing. Because you see, moments are where your brand needs to be right now. And using tools like NetBase, you can easily identify what are the spikes happening, what are the moments, what's trending on social media that our brand can potentially get involved in. Now, here on the screen, you see a few different moments. You've got the Ice Bucket Challenge, the Shiggy Challenge, you have the Face App Challenge. Who here can relate because you've participated in a challenge over the last 5 years? Right? Whether it's you jumped out of a car and did the Shiggy Challenge, you did the Ice Bucket Challenge. There's always these challenges that are popping up and happening. It's your job as a communicator to insert your brand into that conversation when it makes sense. Now, I'm going to tell you something else about scarcity. How many of you over the last month have been following the chicken sandwich wars on social media? It's pretty crazy that in the year 2020, I'm at a conference with professionals talking about chicken sandwiches. But the reality is this. Inmates run the asylum, meaning consumers on social media are the ones that drive social conversation. So when you have a brand like Popeyes get cute and tweet that they're sold out of chicken sandwiches, which is just fried chicken on a bun, and everyone's running over to Wendys or running over to ChickfilA, you've got the numbers right here to back it up. And this is courtesy of NetBase. In a 30-day period, you've had 109,000 people in the world get super passionate about chicken sandwiches to tweet about it. Think about that. Most of your customers probably have never even tweeted anything pertaining to your brand, but yet you've got consumers taking the social media to tweet about chicken sandwiches. Now, you're probably saying like, so what, Carlos? Like, what does that really mean to me? That means that there's a community that already exists of people that are talking. They're mentioning you, and you probably don't even know they exist. Now, going back to community. Community, not content, is really what I want you to focus on when you leave this conference. Chances are you're already empowered with one of the best tools on the market in NetBase. But are you actually using it? Are you truly identifying who's speaking about your brand? Are you identifying who's speaking about your competition? You see, creating content is like one half of the equation here. But what most marketers don't realize is that conversations are a form of content marketing. You can go right now on Twitter and you can type in specific search phrases, search terms for your brand or the services of what you provide your customers, and you can see in real time who's talking about it. So if you're a real estate agent here in Los Angeles, for example, you can type in moving to Los Angeles, need a realtor, Los Angeles. You can do that right now. Because friends, in case no one's ever told you, social media is the wild, wild west. And what I mean by this is there's no rules. There's no governing body that says that you can't engage with the fans or followers of your customers. Let's break this down for a moment. Again, it's the wild, wild west. When I worked at Winn-Dixie, I was very junior in my career. I didn't have a book back then. I wasn't a speaker. I was low man on the totem pole. But I understood this enough to go to my chief marketing officer and say, hey, Mary, when I go onto our social listening platform and type in the words, Publix, Winn-Dixie sucks, I can actually see real people that are mentioning our competition and their dislike for our competition in front of us. We should engage them. And she said, no, Carlos, we don't want to poke the bear. Well, we had a campaign. There was a Walmart that was opening up in the shopping center across the street from a Winn-Dixie store, one of the highest grossing stores in Northeast Florida. And as a marketing organization, we're spending all this money, radio remotes, newspaper ads, putting all this money into outdoor media, at-home media. And I said, Mary, here's the beauty of social media. I just went on and I pulled a geo-radius of everyone within 5 miles of this new Walmart store that dislikes Walmart. There's negative sentiment. And once again, she said, Carlos, we don't want to poke the bear. Hence why I'm standing here speaking to all of you right now, and I'm not working there. The reality is this. If you're not using social media to listen and pay attention, you guys are really missing the mark. I'm gonna talk to several of you individually as I'm here today, as I sign books, and I'm gonna ask you what it is that you do, because I guarantee you're missing opportunities. There are brands that I have worked with and consulted for, and I've said to them, look, let's try this very quick audit. Go on Instagram and type in hashtag your company name. And this is something that you might want to do either now or at some point before you leave here, and you're going to be surprised. There are some brands I've personally worked with that struggle with staying relevant on social media, but they have over 100,000 brand mentions on Instagram that they've never engaged with, which goes back to being a savage. If you want to succeed on social media, you need to be savage AF. And what that means is, first of all, leverage social listening to see who's mentioning your brand, competition, and your industry. Leverage platforms like Facebook. Like, seriously, do this. Whoever your top 3 competitors are, go to their Facebook pages and read the reviews section. I guarantee you're going to find negative comments. I guarantee you, however much you want to make a bet on it, that you're going to find negative comments that brand's community manager has never engaged with at all. Because for one reason or another, they were scared of acknowledging negative sentiment, they didn't want to poke the bear, or, quite frankly, they just ignored it, which happens a lot. Those are prime opportunities for you to build community and for you to engage and grow your market share. Let's talk about Facebook ads for a moment. So many of us work with agencies and we're dumping millions of dollars into Facebook ads, and we depend on our agency to monitor and make sure that they're engaging with the comments on the Facebook ads, because what happens with Facebook ads? They're dark posts. So it's not like we're readily seeing them in our newsfeed. Well, guess what happens with Facebook ads? Your competitors, if you ever see their ads in your newsfeed, the reason why you see them is because they're targeting people that like your brand's Facebook page. You work for your employer, chances are you like your employer's Facebook page. That's why you're seeing competitors' ads in your newsfeed. Those are also opportunities to engage. Think about this for a moment. Your competitor is already spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to target your customers. People will see these ads, people will comment on these ads. It's on you to be a digital savage and engage back. I know some of you are probably sitting there right now looking at me thinking this guy's absolutely batshit crazy. I'm not here to give you elementary speak on social media marketing. I'm here to really help you level up your brand. And if you want to level up your brand, humanize your brand, be relevant, these are things that you ultimately have to do. Because the reality is, it's already happening, ladies and gentlemen. You just are late to the party. I love Wendys, once again, because they're savage as fuck. You look at ChickfilA tweeting out, is there anything better than enjoying one of our spicy chicken sandwiches on a Friday afternoon? Wendys tweets out, yes, enjoying one of ours on a Sunday. Ouch. You have here a Burger King fan. I want to go on a date with Wendys and take them to a real burger joint. Burger King. You have Burger King swoops in, treat her like a princess. Treat her like the princess she deserves to be. Like, that's good now. You have Wendys swoop back in. If you're looking for a princess, you might want to let it go, not interested in the frozen beef kingdom. Ouch. It's pretty savage, right? Now imagine you taking this to your chief marketing officer or your CEO and saying, we need to be digital savages. They're probably going to tell you to your face, you're like pretty crazy. We don't want to poke the bear. But again, this is a way of life. It's like thug life, but digitally speaking. You need to be savage. So I get this at every single one of these shows that I do. Some of you are going to come to me in the back of the room and you're going to say like, hey, everything that you said resonated. I've been trying to tell this to my boss because I hear this happen every single day. In Boston yesterday, it was like 12 people that were saying the same thing. So let me tell you this. You can drive change within your organization, but the same way that you need to educate your consumers on how to engage and love your brand, guess what your objective is? You need to educate your other consumer, which is the person that's controlling the paychecks and the ad budget, and that's your C-suite. You need to literally educate them on where the current is moving. And I know those are hard conversations, because I've had them. They are not people like you or I that are necessarily on Twitter, Instagram, every single day. But real business decisions are made in the boardrooms that you sit in when you can actually say to your boss, we need to spend more time maybe hiring a person or an agency to behind the scenes do all these activities that we're not doing right now because we're just understaffed and we don't have the resources. Now, let's talk about influence. Who holds influence over your audience? Well, once again, if you're using social listening, what you're going to see is there's a trend. Every time you post, there are people that are talking about your brand. There are people that are engaging. There are people organically that are mentioning that you exist. You're probably not engaging them back. I did this exercise about a year ago. Previous Keynote that I used to do, but same kind of theme here around listening. And I went onto Instagram and I looked up hashtag #IWearColeHan. And there was about 400 pieces of user-generated content on Instagram with the hashtag #IWearColeHan. So what does that say to me if someone's posting a picture of a pair of shoes with hashtag #IWearColeHan? Chances are they're a customer of Cole Haan, correct? Chances are they've spent money on buying a pair of shoes for about $150. How many of you would love to have 400 pieces of user-generated content mentioning your brand? Would anyone like to have 400 pieces of user-generated content? Hell, if everyone in this room posted a picture of the end of marketing, I'd be grateful. And that's like 150 people. So the reality is this. I went through purposely and went post by post by post by post. Cole Haan hadn't engaged in a single one of those posts. Not one. So if I was head of social at Kohan, I would fire myself. Real talk. Now, as I was going through and doing this analysis, there was influencers that were verified on Instagram posting content, missed opportunities. There was people that in their caption were saying, love Kohan, these are the most comfortable shoes, missed opportunities. Don't let that happen. So your objective isn't how do we go out and find influencers that have all this reach that can temporarily put a Band-Aid on our lack of engagement and promote our brand. Your objective is how do you create your own influencers? And once again, you start from within. Who are the people at your organization that are passionate about social media? Who are the people that naturally are storytelling? Who are the people that when you're doing like a happy hour on a Friday, they're the ones that are just naturally telling all their homies on Instagram how cool of a place they work at? You have those individuals within your company right now. They might work in IT. They might not be in marketing. They might work in corporate comms and not in social media specifically. So my advice is start leveraging these individuals to do takeovers of your accounts, make them the storytellers, make them the faces of your brands. Now, let's talk about the ever-changing role of a marketer. We talked a little bit about AI and where the trends are going with AI actually replacing human faces within marketing organizations. Over the next 10 years, any of us that work today in traditional marketing or digital and social media marketing will become data analysts. That means taking all the data that social media gives us and actually being able to speak to what that data means, and more importantly, how AI can take that data and do something with it. Because I tell you what, if I can go on NetBase and crawl every single person mentioning best business book, you best believe that my AI is going to engage every single one of those people with a link to Amazon. Why? Because that's being strategic, and that's taking the data and putting it actually to use. Then you have AI program developers. It's building your own AI, building your own personas. And then you have perhaps one of the most important roles in the marketing organization of the future, and that's brand spokesperson. Because let's face it, people relate to people, people buy from people. People don't want to be sold to through a Lil Michaela or the hot Colonel Sanders that should be on The Bachelor. People relate to human voices, human faces. If I came up here and I was a hologram, y'all wouldn't be engaged because you wouldn't be seeing a real human being. You'd be seeing a hologram. Now, before we wrap this up, do we have any hip hop fans here in the audience? Yeah, okay, cool. I did one of these talks in Salt Lake City, Utah. I was really embarrassed because no one knew who DJ Khaled was. And I was like, oh, great. This is going to be really hard for me to get through this. But I was like sweating. Now, and shout out to Salt Lake, by the way. I went to high school out there, so like nothing against Salt Lake. DJ Khaled. It's one of my favorite brands on social media. And the reason why is because DJ Khaled does something really, really well that most brands struggle with. And can you guess what that is? DJ Khaled's real. DJ Khaled, for being a mega celebrity, is relatable. He shows you what he's doing throughout his day. He takes you on a journey from beginning, middle to end of who he's with, what he's doing, what he's up to. He's not the best looking person. He's not the most eloquently spoken individual, but he's engaging, which is why when I go into meetings with chief marketing officers and I say, you have to be more like DJ Khaled and less like a brand, they think I'm absolutely batshit crazy. But let me break down for you the strategy of DJ Khaled's keys to social media success. And first of all, it starts with, why are you on social media? In case no one's told you this before, social media can be a big waste of time if you're not strategic. Most of us in this room work at organizations that have probably a 1 to 2 to 3 person social media team. The reality is that you're probably struggling with keeping up with all the noise and all the friction that's happening. So don't add to that by saying, well, we keep hearing this thing called TikTok now, we have to be on TikTok, or we have to, chase this shiny new object. You don't. So when you go back to your offices, do an assessment, do an audit, heck, call me up and I'll help you with that. And analyze what purpose does social media serve for you right now. The second key is don't think like a marketer, think like a fan. The reason why at the beginning of these presentations I want to know if you like being sold to is because most people don't like being sold to. But yet what do we do for a living? We sell. Every single day we're putting out content on social media, selling versus engaging, versus pulling people in. So stop. Stop thinking about marketing, stop thinking about metrics, stop thinking about ROI, start thinking more about what your customer wants to see, not what you want them to see. Which goes to point number 3, who are you trying to reach? Knowing your audience is so important because when you know who your audience is, Again, kind of going back to my B2B days, like this is really helpful for our friends here in the back of the room. In my B2B days, I knew I was trying to engage a chief information officer or a chief technology officer. He or she is probably not on Snapchat other than to see what their kids are posting. He or she is probably on LinkedIn, and the reality is that someone that I'm trying to sell to that is a decision maker for a brand that cuts very big checks, they also don't have the time to be inundated with reading a 17-page white paper. They want nuggets. They want information real fast. So when you know what your audience wants, then again, psychology, you just play to their needs and you give them what they want in order for them to either do their jobs better or in consumer marketing, how they can be cooler. Step number 4 is social media never sleeps. It's really important that you focus on the fact that when you go away on Fridays at 5 o'clock, there are people that are still going to be online, probably talking about your brand. When I worked in retail, specifically in grocery, every single day around 6 to 7 p.m., my phone would go off with notifications. You know why? Because people were getting home from Winn-Dixie or Save-A-Lot. They were taking their groceries out of the bags and putting them in their dining room or in their cupboard, and they're discovering the produce has mold on it. The bread isn't fresh. The meat is expired. And guess what they would do? They would take to social media and tell all their friends about it. The point I'm trying to make here is that in order to be a digital savage, you can't just go away because you're going away and going home at the end of the day. You need to ensure that you have resources, you have boots on the ground, or you're using automation. Again, that's where AI comes in. You're using automation to ensure that even if you're just engaging someone and saying, hey, we're currently offline, but we'll be back Monday at, say, 8 a.m., please leave us a direct message on how we can best serve you. 5 is create relevant content that your audience wants. That's a major key here in all that you do. Give your audience more of what they want. Educate, inspire, entertain. 6 is be loyal to your audience and they'll be loyal to you. I can't tell you how many times over the last few years that I've been close to missing a flight and I've messaged American Airlines directly through Twitter and they helped me with rebooking my flight or getting me on another route. There's times where I'm going to check in late. Like, for example, yesterday I took a red eye Sunday night. I landed in Boston at 6 a.m. I messaged Marriott directly through Twitter, let them know I'm going to be doing a very, very late check-in, technically in the morning and the next day. They said, no problem, Mr. Gill, we've got you taken care of. When you're loyal to your audience, meaning you're listening to them, you're helping them out, then they will be loyal to you. Step number 7, perhaps the most important, is community. I said it before, I'm going to say it again. Community is king. Content is queen. Without community, you have absolutely nothing. Now, again, I'm a big hip-hop fan. Granted, what I just shared with you, DJ Khaled's Keys to Success. There's a great philosopher by the name of Jay-Z that once said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. The reason why I had this in presentations and the reason why I'm sharing this quote with all of you is because we all have access to data. That data doesn't lie. 109,000 people mentioning chicken sandwiches on Twitter in 30 days doesn't lie. There's power in that data, and it's up to all of you to leverage that power to your advantage. It doesn't need to be a lot of people, but it can be a few people, and those few people add up. See, most CMOs that I meet with, no offense to anyone in the room, they're a little greedy. They want their brand to be the best online. They want to own the most market share. They want to have the most followers on social media. But you don't need followers to be successful. You just need people to believe in you in order to buy from you. And more importantly, you need advocates to trust you and like you and promote you to their audiences. And the data exists right now. Those people are sitting out there right now. It's up to you to go out and find them. So with that, I want to thank all of you for your time today. I want to thank NetBase for inviting me to come speak to their conference. Thank you so much. I also want to invite you to meet with me at lunch. Again, if you didn't get your copy of The End of Marketing, be sure to get those at registration, and we'll be able to chat. I can answer any questions for you from this presentation or anything that's on your mind. So thank you so much.